perhaps the largest mistake that we've made in our handling of the COVID pandemic, and there have been many, is that at the end of the last lockdown, despite achieving an R number which was below 1 and having the virus under a degree of control, we opened a vast amount of our economy in quite quick succession.
Yes.
So schools and universities came back. There was Eat Out to help out. Our service industry was back up and running. Pro sports came in, and you had your banks in central London at the behest of the good mayor saying they needed their employees to come back. So my understanding here is that we have no idea where in the economy the R number is taking the biggest hit, because at the time when we had it under control and had the opportunity to experiment with different areas of our economy, see whether or not it's the service industry that really boosts the R and how can we address that, or if it's hospitality. Let's find out where the R is being really manipulated. And that way we might be able to find that sensible equilibrium between preserving life to the best of our abilities, but also having our economy running in such a way. But my point here is
really
that
strong, actually, Harry.
This type of approach requires that we have the R number under control at the outset. Any scientist will tell you that you need some sort of control in order to reach any sort of a conclusion. And so perhaps, why lie? It would require, in the first instance, to admit that our handling of the end of the first lockdown was hugely underwhelming, that we'd made quite a significant mistake.
But that was a political handling, wasn't it? Rather than, if we're looking to identify the motives of Whitty and Valence, I'm not sure that they bear responsibility for coming out of the lockdown, and they certainly don't bear responsibility for the almost celebratory air that pervaded the nation. That came very much from the political side of Downing Street rather than the scientific side.
I think that's a fair point. I'll try once again to give you a reason as to why I lie. Perhaps finding.
Do you think they are lying? I'm sorry to interrupt. Just to know, do you think they are, or shamelessly manipulating, to use the phrase du jour?
I think the absence of shame is perhaps just not quite the right word. They maybe are lying, and it's the extent to which they are lying. Okay. And I think statisticians
to avoid admitting that they got it wrong last time, they're going even further this time.
Well, I think you've given a reasonable explanation that was perhaps more politically driven than by our
but still,
scientists.
I'm interested in what you say.
My conclusion would be that, unfortunately, the nature of statistics these days is that there's such a wealth of information out there that it's actually quite easy to manipulate the statistics in your favour, and people have been doing it for a long time, a lot longer than COVID.
Yes, that's true.
So perhaps it's quite easy for these people to do it. But I would maybe posit just one further thought, that in trying to get public support for your opinion, you need to have an idea which is easily conveyed. You need to have something which the man on the Clapham omnibus perfectly understands, and perhaps trying to explain that perhaps we can run a properly experimental reopening of our economy, whereby we stress test different areas and reach scientific or quasi-scientific conclusions about which areas of our economy we can actually get back up and running. Perhaps they're thinking that messaging is not something which we can actually
because it's complicated and nuanced, and the messaging certainly in the current zeitgeist is the opposite of complicated and nuanced. It's simplistic and often quite crass.